Hello everyone, welcome to Newsroom Weekly Review. I'm Chella Smith, bringing you the latest on reforms and economics, your Middle East U.S. entertainment news here on YouTube. Lots going on right now in Iraq. Prime Minister Mustafa al-Kazemi survived an attempt of an assassination last week, and also lots of meetings regarding who will be nominated the new Prime Minister. It's November 19th, less than a week before Thanksgiving. Most families will be enjoying pumpkin pie, yams, stuffing, turkey, and I know I have to have dinner rolls to dip my mashed potatoes in. Every family has a passed down grandma's dish or favorite Thanksgiving recipe. What's your favorite recipe? Place those in the comments. Hopefully you will be spending time with your family and friends. Thank you everyone for joining me this week. Let's get right into your news. Shafak News reports the American NBC News Network quoted current and former U.S. officials as saying that Iran did not issue orders to launch a drone attack to target Iraqi Prime Minister Mustafa al-Kazemi, although it's almost certain that the Shiite militia forces in Tehran, armed and supported, carried out the attack. A senior U.S. military official and two former senior U.S. officials said the assassination attempt shows that Tehran has struggled to contain viral Shiite militia leaders. Since Washington's assassinated the deputy commander of the Popular Mobilization Force, Abu al-Mohandes, the leader of the Iran Quds Force, Qasem Soleimani, in January 2020, the American network quoted that the American military official in a report translated by Shafak News Agency, he said that if it's fair to say that Iran has not had much control over these groups since the killing of Soleimani, drones armed with explosives were at al-Kazemi's house in Baghdad in the early hours of the morning on November 7th, but al-Kazemi survived. Iran commended the attack and denied any role in it. The American network indicated that current and former officials and regional experts say that the design and components of the drones are similar to the other drones used by Iranian-backed militias since July 2020, including a number of failed attacks on the U.S. embassy compound. The network pointed out its reports that the commander of the U.S. Central Command, General Frank McKenzie, blames the assassination attempt on the Iranian-backed militia earlier this week, while current and former U.S. officials say that the weapons used, tactics, and targets all refer to Iranian-backed militia, having indicated that Iran's relationship with its proxies in Iraq and other regions of the Middle East is deliberately opaque, given its means to deny responsibility for the attacks carried out by the partners it trained and armed. But the network said that the current and former officials now say that the assassination attempt was not backed by Iran. The network quoted that the former U.S. ambassador to Iraq, Dulles Silliman, that it does not appear that the assassination of al-Kazemi serves as Iran's strategic interest because it would risk unleashing a turbulent chain of events on its borders. The former U.S. ambassador said, "I would be very surprised if Iran ordered a drone attack on al-Kazemi. Iran does not want to see a completely destabilized Iraq and simply wants an Iraq that is not balanced enough to have border, political, or economic influence." Also, Simon Watkins from the oilprice.com reported Iraq's national oil company, the INOC, has been authorized by government in Baghdad to directly negotiate with the U.S. oil grants Chevron for its develop the long-delayed Nasiriyah oil field in southern Dakar province, according to several domestic news sources. Shafak News reported Sunday the Iraqi Ministry of Finance clarified the reasons for adopting the new exchange rate for the U.S. dollar against the local currency, noting this came to supplement national productions, protect the central bank reserves, and support its budget. In a statement received by Shafak News Agency, the Ministry of Finance said during the past 3 years, it has borne the burden of stifling financial crisis that's threatened the state's ability to fulfill its obligations that were already burdened by the large legacy represented by inflation rates of public spending and the rise in the wage bill. with threatens to secure the salaries of its employees in light of the low, sharp global oil prices and dangerous health situations due to the consequences of the corona pandemic on a national economy and its repercussions of an economic reality and social fabric. The Ministry of Finance indicated that the general budget continues between the need for a wise public financial management with its obligations to ensure the protection of the weakest and most needy groups, pointing to the support of international communities for the policies of Ministry of Finance. As the Monetary Funds and the World Bank approves public financial management under difficult circumstances. In a previous statement, the Iraqi Ministry of Finance issued on the 5th of last October a clarification regarding the exchange rate of the U.S. dollar, noting the changes it would work to stop the fall of the reserve currency and enhance import capabilities. The indicator showed, according to the financial statement, a clear improvement in the commercial activities in the past 9 months of the current year, 2021, in light of the crisis of the spread of COVID-19 virus. And it has also helped to stop penetration of the Iraqi markets and flood it with cheap goods and curb attempts to upgrade local productions. It is noteworthy that the Central Bank of Iraq on December 19th, 2020, officially announced the amendment of the foreign exchange rate, the U.S. dollar, to 145,000 dinars for every 100, according to the state general budget for the year 2021, approved by the House of Representatives. And Baghdad Mwanzi News reported Sunday the federal Supreme Court ruled the unconstitutionality of number of phases of Article 46 of the parliamentary election laws. And the court media stated in a statement received by Mwanzi News that the federal Supreme Court decided by virtue of its decision number 144 Federal 2021 on November 14th, 2021, that the phases otherwise the one who receives the highest votes from the losing candidates from his list would be an alternative to it in his constituency, and the phase individual candidates from Article 46 of Iraqi's parliamentary election laws number 9 for the year 2020 due to the violations of provisions of Article 5, 14, 16, and 20 of the Constitution of the Republic of Iraq for the year 2005, and the article remains in the following form. The winning candidate commits to parliamentary elections by taking the constitutional oath within a maximum period of 1 month from the date of the first session. Al-Farat News reports a member of the Parliamentary Finance Committee in the former parliament, Sharwan Mirza, expected a financial abundance in the 2022 financial budget due to the rise in oil prices. Mirza told Al-Farat News there is a financial abundance that has been achieved and the possibility of improving the economic situation due to increase in oil prices. He added, so far, Iraq has not resorted to borrowing, whether external or internal, and is at the end of the year. Mirza pointed out that there is a full financial coverage, meaning there is no financial deficit until now. He continued the government has fulfilled its full financial obligations towards the citizens, and there are expected that the price of a barrel of oil will stabilize its rates at $80 a barrel. And some economy news. Baghdad reported Sunday the National Bank of Iraq announced the launch of certificates of deposit with an annual interest rate of 6.5%. The bank said in a post on Facebook site, which was seen by Al-Iqtisad News, that it decided to grant certificates of deposits with guaranteed return rates of 6.5%. He added that the deposits of the national banks of Iraq are subject to insurance by the deposit insurance companies. It is noteworthy that the National Bank of Iraq currently has 18 branches spread across all major cities in Iraq. Mwanzi News reported the former director of the Financial Supervision Bureau, Saleh Nuri, has determined Tuesday the possibility of restoring and considering the previous dollar exchange rate. Nuri said in an interview with Mwanzi News that according to the information, the general budget for the next year is not much different from the budget of the previous years in terms of financial allocations and disbursement, as they will be followed by the same mechanism and the same method of preparing it, and the financial and spending ceiling is similar. He added there is a possibility authority to reconsider the dollar exchange rate gradually, and that the return will not be the same way it was changed, noting that the exchange rate remains on its status in 2022 budget. He pointed out the raise in exchange rate of the dollar generally affected the living situation of Iraqi citizens, and that the benefit was obtained only for the Ministry of Finance by increasing its financial liquidity and disbursements salaries without the need to borrow. He pointed out that currently approved exchange rates reduce the ability of the Iraqi citizens, the employees, to purchase by 48%, while the fragile classics were the most affected. Shafak News reports the president of the Kyrgyzstan region, Natrevin Barzani, and the president of the Republic, Barham Chella, stressed on Wednesday the need for joint cooperation and coordination between all Iraqi parties to overcome the current stage that follows the results of the legislative elections in Iraq. This came during President Barzani's reception of Iraqi President Barham Chella. According to the statement issued by the presidency of Tutari Wednesday, the statement stated that during the meeting, views were discussed. They exchanged about situations in Iraq in general, the stages that follow the voting process, the election for Iraqi parliament and its results, the relations between Erbil and Baghdad, the efforts made within the frameworks of forming the next Iraqi government and facing threats, ISIS, and developments in the region in general. The statement added that the two sides stressed the importance and necessities of cooperation and coordination between the Iraqi forces and parties to overcome the challenges of the current stage. According to the statement, the two sides agreed that everyone should work to achieve stability, form a government of service to meet the demands of the expectations of the citizens, and to put the political process and the country on the right track. Al-Farat News reports the U.S. Congress are engaged in debates about canceling the president mandate that gave the green light to the U.S. war in Iraq in 2003, aimed at the Democrats' demand to revoke it and opposition amongst the Republicans. The abolition of the war mandate in Iraq may pave the way for termination of another mandate for Afghanistan's, which has been widely criticized for its lack of geographic limitations and the demonstrations that U.S. forces may target in their military operations. The authorization to use military force against Iraq's Act of 2002, or the AUMF 2002, granted former U.S. President George Washington Bush the authorization to wage war against Saddam's regime. This authorization was used recently in January 2020 when former U.S. President Donald Trump ordered a drone strike in Iraqi capital Baghdad. Some have criticized the use of Iraqi mandates and assassination of Soleimani, and that leaving the law hanging may encourage its misuse for future presidents, according to the Axios website. The difference between mandates and the declaration of war U.S. law provides many military powers to use the U.S. president, who is also the commander of the armed forces. Article 2 of the Constitution grants him a mandate to use force in specific cases after obtaining the approval of Congress. Declaration of war gives the U.S. president the full and unconditional use of U.S. military, providing that they obtain a specific stationary authorization from Congress or a self-defense after the country is under attack and the state of emergency is declared. The United States issued its last declaration of war in 1942 against Romania during World War II, but the Congress approved a number of mandates that deviated from the constitutional norm, which allowed the U.S. president to launch military operations in specific cases without the need for congressional approval. The United States has waived its war in Vietnam, the Gulf, Afghanistan, and Iraq according to these mandates. And 4 days after the September 11, 2021 attack, Congress issued a AUMF 2001 authorization, which allowed any U.S. president to use military force according to the parameters that Congress has placed under war of terror designation without the need for prior approval. However, the wording of this mandate did not include any geographical boundaries, which allows action to be taken against all those who plan, authorized, committed, or assisted Al-Qaeda in carrying out terrorist attacks and those who harbored the attackers, and thus paved the way for launching the American war on Afghanistan, which embraced fighters Al-Qaeda. This broad language has contributed to the U.S. launching 41 operations in 19 countries, according to the Friends Committee on National Legislation website. The 2002 AUMF mandates for the U.S. war in Iraq define the presidency authority to use the armed force as necessary and appropriate to defend the nation's security of the United States against the continuing threat posed by Iraq and implement all Security Council's resolutions relevant to Iraq. Decisive votes. The Senate is expected to vote this week to repeal the 2002 AUMF mandate for Iraq as part of the passage of the $768 billion annual defense authorization bill. After about 20 years, the United States reduced the number of its forces in Iraq to 2,500 out of 170,000, and the Iraqi government became a close ally of Washington supporters. Democrats seek to declare their success in ending America's internal wars, and this was evident when the United States announced the withdrawal from Afghanistan to end the longest war it has ever witnessed. The current U.S. President Joe Biden supports the decision to cancel the authorization for Iraq and acknowledgement that the United States has no military activities that rely exclusively on the 2002 AUMF, according to the domestic legal basis. Repealing the law could provide more specific mandates for current challenges. The legislature seeks to revoke the Afghanistan mandate AUMF 2001 and see reclining Iraqi's first mandate as the necessary and essential steps to do so. Democrat Senator Tim Kaine, who has led efforts to repeal Afghanistan mandates, said members of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee were in talks with the White House to repeal and replace the AUMF 2001, but he emphasizes that the idea was always that they would revoke another mandate first. Democratic Senator and Chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Bob Menendez, told Axios, "I believe that Congress should consent to the use of force and when it has served its purpose should rescind to ensure that it is not abused." Menendez warned the repeal of the Afghanistan mandate is a complex matter, adding that the 2001 mandate is not just about repealing it, but replacing it. His position was shared by Republican Senator Ron Paul, who told Axios that it would be great if we could rescind the 2002 Iraq mandate, but warned about rescinding Afghanistan mandates would be more complicated. Democratic Senator Ben Cardin, for his part, showed more interest in rescinding Afghanistan mandate because President interrupted it as allowing them to do whatever they want, he told Axios opponents, but some Republicans fear that repealing Iraq's mandate groups in the country that have carried out attacks against U.S. force situations there, and the Axios website quoted source close to the Republican majority leader in the Senate, Mitch McConnell, that the expected mandates to be revoked, but would demand that it be kept. For his part, Republican Senator Ted Cruz said, "I believe strongly in the Congress carrying out its powers of war." Shafak News reported the leader of the Satirist movement, Muqtada al-Sadr's, announced today the dissolution of the Promise Day Brigade and its closure of its headquarters. Al-Sadr said in a tweet seen by Shafak News Agency, "As a gesture of goodwill on my part, al-Sadr's announced the dissolution of the formation of the Promise Day Brigade and closed its headquarters. And had it not been for the fact that they handed over their weapons to the former Peace Brigade and what is currently called Brigade 313, 314, 315 in Samarra, I would have ordered them to hand over their weapons and obey because they are still loyal to us and their country. He added, if it is found, they must hand them over within 48 hours, hoping that this step will be the beginning of dissolving the armed factions, handing over their weapons and closing their headquarters, and even be a message of safety and peace for all the people. So the brigade officially must implement this decision. And yesterday, the leader of the Satirist movement, Muqtada al-Sadrs, announced a set of conditions for participating in the losing Shiite political forces in the elections and forming the next Iraqi government, most notably the dissolution of all armed factions. And that's it for this week's Newsroom Weekly Review, your Middle East U.S. entertainment news on reforms and economics. I try to bring you all the latest Iraqi news without having to go through all the different outlets. I'm Chella Smith. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you like my content, give me a thumbs up. I will see you guys next Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific here on YouTube for your next Newsroom update. Again, shout out to Currency365 for his continued support. And if you want to learn about stocks and cryptos, I highly recommend joining him and his crew for the most recent updates. You can find him on YouTube or Patreon. Thank you everyone again for joining me. Have a happy Thanksgiving holiday. Don't forget to comment your favorite recipe. Maybe I'll add it to my dinner this year. And take care. Make sure you join us Fridays, 4 p.m. with Newsroom Updates with Chella Smith Entertainment News. And don't forget us on Sundays for What's Cooking in the Kitchen. You can also find us behind the scenes 24/7 on Snapchat.